Holy smokes, we are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to support this Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel with a donation, hit the $ when you make a comment, and I will get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome into the studio that sits in the middle of Heisman City on the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway in Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. PATC community, do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. Breaking news. I got the breaking news about 30 seconds after Political put it out there on Twitter, and I've been scrambling ever since. We could have done this live show an hour ago. But I got to tell you, your host, the fat guy from Minnesota, has been on the phone. I've been scrambling. It's been nuts. Absolutely nuts. We're working on other stuff that might happen today. It is a deluge. It is a tsunami a tsunami that's going on right now in the college football world. Holy smokes. I promised everybody a Cloak and Dagger episode this morning. And we did one, but I could not release it because there's other information. It would be incomplete. So I'm going to have to go ahead and delete it. For members only Cloak and Dagger episode, it's going to come out, I think, today. I don't know, man. It's almost to the point where when I put something out, it becomes obsolete. I'm not complaining. This is exciting times in college football. But man, we are riding the wild tiger. And I said this yesterday. I said, make sure, when you subscribe to our channel, have your notifications open. Because we can jump on live at any time. We could have been live early this morning. But I've been too busy with other PAT stuff. It's crazy. It is absolutely nuts. I want to thank everybody for coming in and breaking news. I want to thank everybody for coming in at the beginning of the show. Holy smokes. I already got a lot of people in here. Attorney General, the state of Florida, Attorney General Mooney has filed a lawsuit in Leon County. She wants the documents. The ACC-ESPN media rights agreement documents. She wants them out in public and she wants them in their hands. She says, look, if we're going to pay $500 million, if we're going to pay $500 million, $500 million to get out of the ACC, we should be able to see what's in the media rights agreement instead of just going to some vault in Charlotte, North Carolina, not being able to take pictures, only being able to take notes. They really want that out in public. What they want to do is they want to squeeze ESPN to squeeze the ACC into sitting at the negotiation table. Right? We're going to quickly go through Mooney's tweet. The Attorney General, she put out a tweet. We're going to go through the great Matt Baker's little article he put out in the Tampa Bay Times. And then we're going straight into the document, the lawsuit that Mooney filed against the ACC in Leon County. We're going straight into that. And then, besides all of that, let me show you something here, what happened in Mecklenburg County this morning. Yeah, we got a big lawsuit. Leon County, that's the big story of today. No question about it. But in Mecklenburg, take notice, case management conference as well as the hearing on plaintiff Atlantic Coast Conference motion to file under seal and defendant Clemson's University forecasted motion to dismiss will be held on July 2nd, 2024. And remember, Clemson's forecasted motion to dismiss, Clemson has until May 6th, May 7th to file a motion to dismiss in Mecklenburg County. We're all going to be expecting that when it happens, whenever it happens. If it happens today, tomorrow, whenever it happens, we have Peek Around the Corner. We're going to be doing a live show on that as well. So we've got 1,000 things going on here in college football. Okay, let me get to everybody. Let me say thank you to everybody. And then we got to get to the big breaking news. Everybody's been waiting for a long time. There might be a point in this morning show that I'm just going to have to walk out of the studio for just a moment. I might have to walk off for just a moment. I'm waiting for a phone call. We're working on something else. when it comes to college football. And you would be interested in it, I can assure you. We're working on something else. So I might just have to walk out just for 5 to 10 minutes. So please be patient with me. I do apologize. Shouldn't have the host walking out of the studio, but that is probably what is going to happen. Stephen McNeely, thank you for coming on in. Appreciate it. The Walking Geek. John Menser. Nick Boardman is in the house. Coy. Charlie Atwood, Penn State, is in the house. Randy Taylor, Clemson alumnus. Clemson is in the house. Mr. Terrapin, JT Turtle. Mr. Georgia Bulldog just got their Jaden Rashada has committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. He went there on a visit, and he's committed while he's there on a visit. Now, Coach Kirby, again, he keeps saying it, he wants to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks on his roster at any time. Rashada is the 4th scholarship quarterback. Big news out of Georgia. Matt Neeson, go Cyclones. Caleb Ramirez, KS Bear fan. Now, is Kansas State, are they going to get Dylan Edwards? Let me know. Is it Kansas State? Is it going to be Kansas? Nebraska still in the hunt, I believe. Let me know what the update is. Dylan Edwards, big time player. Holy smokes. John Dry is in the house. Bill G, the college football guy. Red Raider, Laura Weiss is in the house. P-Lit, Wayne Russell. We're definitely going to talk about it. Immaculate, Mr. Hot Guy is reporting for duty. John Dry, Mr. Tiger DP is in the house. Chief Fan is here. Kirk Bender. Holy smokes. Gavin Hackman is in the house. Everybody is here. Holy smokes. My prof. I love college football, but everything is stupid about it right now. Florida Man is here. Rock and Rant. Mr. Hurricane. A. Korea is here. Lee. The Horned Frog. Mick Stevens. Jonathan Price is in the house. Buckshot Kid. Good morning to you, Buckshot Kid. Minnesota Seminoles. Yes, there are Seminole fans in the great state of Minnesota. Expedition Greg. Florida Canes. They're both in the house. Me versus Echo Chamber. D5 Terps. Another Mr. Terrapin is here. Mooncat. 2 Mazda. Holy smokes. Gator Hater. Richard Jones. Gene Watson. RFR Mac. Doug Steinhauser. Kyle Visser, Lee Go Gators, Humble Bumble Duck. Wow. Humble Bumble Duck is in the house. Everybody is here. The NFL draft later tonight. Holy smoke. Now, people keep asking me, Greg, are you going to cover the NFL draft on your YouTube channel? You didn't do it last year. Whatever. No, we're not going to cover it. I'm sure there's a lot of college football YouTube channels. They're going to cover it. They're going to do a great job. Have a lot of fun. No question about it. We just don't do this. We cover college football here at Peek Around the Corner. The NFL is nothing but a 3-letter word when it comes to the Rebel Outpost. This is all college football all the time, except for that 0.00001% on what is going on, the skies and the oceans that we don't know what the heck is going on. But besides that, 99.9999% is college football. Okay. Here we go. Let's get into it. First of all, before we go into the actual documents, AG, Ashley Mooney, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, the ACC, that she posted this morning, the ACC is asking a state entity, Florida State, to potentially pay and lose more than $500 million, but is refusing to produce the documents related to that outrageous price tag. We are taking legal action against the ACC for wrongfully withholding these important public records. She's not talking about the grant of rights. She's not talking about the grant of rights. If you go into Leon County, you can find them there. They are on a PDF. She's talking about the ACC-ESPN media rights agreement. Now, here at Peek Around the Corner, we did a very epic, I think it's going to be proven to be a very important live show, when we discussed some verbiage between the University of Texas, Austin, and the SEC. When it came to membership obligations, the language that was in that document, and oh yes, eventually we're going to go through that again on this live show. This is going to be a lengthy live show. This is an inflection point for the future of Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC. We're going to be going through that document once again. I'm going to be reading it. And if that language mirrors what's the language is in this media, ACC, if it is, then the ACC and ESPN is in trouble from our perspective here at Peek Around the Corner. We do not know if that language is in the ACC-ESPN document because we haven't seen the ACC-ESPN media agreement document because they won't let it out in public. Mooney wants it. She wants the documents herself. They still haven't given her the documents. We're going to be going through some letters between Mooney and the ACC. They traded letters back and forth. We're going to go through that today. So buckle up, brace for impact. But what I like about what Ashley Mooney is saying here, she's doing it to where you can easily understand, right? We're potentially going to pay. Florida State's potentially going to pay. No doubt about it, they're going to pay something. And it's going to be a lot of money. And the money's going to the ACC. At the very least, Florida State should have the documents in their hand. They shouldn't have to go to Charlotte and take notes. They should have the documents in their hands. When they go to the negotiating table at the ACC, the Attorney General, the state of Florida, should have the document in her hand. Now you say, well, geez, Greg, this is between Florida State and ACC. Why is she getting involved? Why is the Attorney General getting involved? Remember, we said this a while ago because we were told this. PATC reported this. One of the reasons, just one, but a very important reason why Florida State was at the center of the stage and they were the tip of the spear in the drama in the Holy Smokes Theater, and Clemson was next to them. We talked about it because the state of Florida was more apt to support Florida State in this endeavor versus the ACC in the courts versus the state of South Carolina. We have been read into some stuff here at Peek Around the Corner months ago So we reported to you that was the reason why, and it's showing up right now. I do not believe, we at Peek Around the Corner do not believe South Carolina is going to do the same thing. The Attorney General, even though Mooney sent a letter, one of them was to the Attorney General of South Carolina, we don't believe there's going to be involvement in that office in Clemson's case. If that happens, we'll take the L. But don't think that's going to happen. Now, you say again, well, Moody's getting involved. How dare she? This is unprecedented. No, it is precedented. Over and over and over again. This has happened in the history of realignment. In fact, when we go through PATC's rules, number 1, realignment never sleeps. Number 2, the top dominoes fall first. Number 3, the schools contact the conferences first, not the conference talking to the schools. One of those rules that we're going to have to put in there is eventually, an attorney general most often does get involved in these type of cases. Matt Baker talks about it. The great Matt Baker, Tampa Bay Times. Florida Attorney General files complaint against the ACC in Florida State's conflict. Ashley Mooney and Florida State have asked for the conference TV contracts with ESPN, which involved hundreds of millions of dollars. In the state of Florida has now become a party in Florida State University's ongoing litigation with the Atlantic Coast Conference. Florida Attorney General Ashley Mooney filed a complaint in Leon County Circuit Court on Thursday, this morning, ladies and gentlemen, accusing the ACC of violating the state's open record laws by refusing to produce documents. Specifically, Mooney and Florida State have asked for the conference TV contracts with ESPN, which involves hundreds of millions of dollars. The language of that contract, the language of that contract and related ones, like the grant of rights, are at the heart of Florida State's dueling lawsuits with the conference. Matt Baker goes on. The ACC is asking a state entity, we just went through this in Attorney General Moody's tweet of early this morning. The ACC is asking a state entity, Florida State University, to potentially pay and lose more than $500 million, but is refusing to produce the documents related to the outrageous price tag. Mooney said in his statement, "We sent a public records request to the ACC in January." We're going to go through that letter. Later in the monologue, we're going to go through that letter. The letter that Mooney sent to the ACC in January, that is one of the exhibits in the lawsuit that was filed today in Leon County. We sent a public records request to the ACC in January, but they failed to fully comply. We are taking legal action against the ACC for wrongfully withholding these important public records. Again, Tampa Bay Times, the great Matt Baker article of this morning. The ACC denied her request in January. And we're going to go through the ACC's letter back to Mooney, because that's also in an exhibit in the lawsuit filed this morning by the Attorney General Mooney. The ACC denied her request in January and has been careful about what portions are included in the lawsuits, citing concerns about sharing trade secrets. A judge in North Carolina generally agreed with some of the league's concerns. The league lets member schools inspect the contract at its office in North Carolina under very strict circumstances. Holy smokes. Not only can they can't take a picture of it, when they take notes, there's somebody in the room while the person is taking notes. It's under very strict circumstances. But Florida has different, more open laws about public records. A Leon County judge, John C. Cooper, mentioned that in a recent hearing on Florida State's complaint against the ACC. And I got to tell you, I'm not a lawyer, just a fat guy from Minnesota. But it seemed to me that John C. Cooper kind of, I think he kind of agreed with Florida State. But we're going to find out more as that case continues in Leon County. Mooney is going further with her lawsuit. Under secret media rights contracts located somewhere in North Carolina, headquarters of the Atlantic Coast Conference, ACC, the fate of hundreds of millions of dollars of a Florida public university is written, the complaint set reads. Under the secret media rights contracts located somewhere in North Carolina headquarters, the fate of hundreds of millions of dollars of a Florida public university is written. Mooney is asking the court to declare that the records are public. So everybody in the PATC community can read them. It means I can read them. She's also seeking reasonable cost of enforcement and asking for an immediate hearing on this question. Trying to tighten the screws on ACC and ESPN, trying to get them to the negotiation table. And finally, in the Matt Baker's article, this is the third suit involving Florida State and its future in the ACC. And the second in Tallahassee. One is ongoing in North Carolina, with Florida State appealing an initial ruling to that state Supreme Court. Clemson and the ACC also have dueling lawsuits over similar claims and documents. They're playing out in South Carolina and North Carolina. Holy smokes. And now we're going to get into the documents. Wow. Marcus Williams, the strategy by the state of Florida is next level. Eventually, when the dust settles, the ACC is going to wish they settled sooner. Thank you for becoming an early peak Cloak and Dagger member for the third month. Holy smokes. Marcus Williams, thank you so very much. You are hereby knighted Cloak and Dagger once again. The strategy by the state of Florida is next level. Now, did the Florida State lawyers know that the Attorney General was going to do this? Probably. Most likely, yes. You remember when the lawyer Rush, Florida State lawyer Rush here on April 22nd, just 3 days ago, it seems like it was 3 weeks ago. There's so much going on. 3 days ago, Leon County, part 2, right? The attorney for Florida State, he holds up a piece of paper and says, the media rights agreement, it's blank. We've asked for it. Attorney General Mooney has demanded it. And she still hasn't gotten it yet. We don't have it yet. Judge, this has to be, whatever. Yeah, there's probably been communications between the both of them. Marcus Williams, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your generosity in becoming a member for the third month. Holy smokes. Thank you so very kindly. I'm going to get to some comments here. Greg, in the Florida State's AG's lawsuit on page 2, paragraph 6 and 8. We're going to get to it. I'll write that down. Page 2. We got it all set up here. Page 2, paragraph 6 and 8. We'll take a look at it. This will win the motion for them. Thank you, King Spleen Immaculate. The AG office just blew up the entire timeline of the competing courts. An immediate hearing, AG might possibly get it. Now, Terry Kane brings, and I had a discussion with somebody this morning. Is this the third lawsuit you were reading about yesterday, Greg? I don't know. It came from Phil Berger, the Senate leader of 15 years in the state of North Carolina. He talked about how there was 2 lawsuits going back and forth and maybe a third lawsuit. Did he get the heads up on this? That this was happening? I don't know. I don't know, and I'm not sure it's important, really. The more I think about Phil Berger, I think he's just a bystander on the highway of this story. I don't think... We talked about it yesterday. I don't know the answer, Terry. I really don't. There's a lot of complications going on at UNC Chapel Hill. I think that's the main story coming out of yesterday. Okay, let's get to... Now again, for people to be able to read this document, I had to do it a certain way here. So let me start from the beginning here. Let's see here. This was the Politico this morning. The Attorney General, they were the first to report it. The Attorney General, Ashley Mooney, is asking the court to force the Atlantic Coast Conference to turn over media rights contracts that are at the center of the ongoing legal dispute. Okay? She demanded those records back in January. We're going to go through those letters, okay? I'm not sure if there's any more that we have to go through the political argument article. Yeah, I think we're going to skip over that. We're going to get right to... I've pretty much covered everything that's in the political article. So, I'll end it by this here. This may be just the first skirmish between Mooney and the ACC. From Gary Fineout from the Political. In a letter she sent last week to attorney generals in 6 other states, Mooney said Florida was also considering joining Florida State's appeal of a ruling in the North Carolina case. The judge in that case, Judge Bledsoe, ruled that Florida State had waived its sovereign immunity rights and could be sued in that state because Florida State was a member of the ACC. So that is the other issue that the Attorney General Mooney is hitting hard on. Okay? The sovereign immunity. She doesn't believe Florida State waived it just simply because they are part of the ACC. Now, there's one other thing here. One other information that I think it's important to cover, but I don't quite... Somebody covered the history of attorney generals getting involved. Maryland's attorney general got involved. When Maryland left the conference, it had nothing to do with the grant of rights, it had to do with the exit fee. Attorney generals have gotten involved in the past. Somebody wrote a nice little article or paragraph in an article about it, but it looks like I failed to pick that up and put it into our morning show. I apologize, but there is a history of attorney generals getting involved. So Mooney is not the first, will not be the last to get involved. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this here. This is the first page. Filing this morning. The time is 3:12:19 a.m. 3 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, in the Circuit Court of the Second Judicial Circuit in and for Leon County, Florida. The Office of Attorney General, the plaintiff, the Atlantic Coast Conference, the defendant. Introduction. The Florida Office of Attorney General brings this action against the Atlantic Coast Conference. Under secret media rights contracts located somewhere in North Carolina headquarters of the Atlantic Coast Conference, the fate of hundreds of millions of dollars of Florida Public University is written. The Office of Attorney General requested these media rights contracts. The ACC refused. The ACC would not produce a single word of the contracts, including terms already disclosed publicly, including by the ACC itself. They sent nothing to the Attorney General. The signature block states the numbers of paragraphs or even the number of pages. The contracts are a public record because Florida State University examines and uses the media right contracts in the transaction of the agency's official business. The contracts are also the product of delegated authority by Florida State to the ACC. The ACC has designated itself the exclusive custodian of these contracts, denying the photocopying or other custodial access by a public university, including Florida State. The failure of the ACC to produce these public records in accordance with the Public Records Act subjects the ACC to self-imposed liability. And this litigation is the result of its refusals. And then it talks about the parties, jurisdiction and venue, facts upon which plaintiff relies for relief. The media rights contracts are public records. The media rights contracts were made or received in connection with the official business of a public state university or persons acting on its behalf. Florida State, along with other members, sorry about that, I did not have it up there. It's hard to read anyways. Along with other members of the ACC, entered in a grant of rights in 2013 and 2016, transferring exclusive media rights of all its home games contests to the ACC in exchange of the authority granted under the grant of rights. The ACC, in its own words, negotiated on behalf of the collective universities and entered into a material media contracts with ESPN. Since that time, Florida State was recently crowned the ACC's undefeated football champion. Despite this achievement, Florida State was deprived of of a playoff spot in the 2023-24 college football playoff in favor of two other one-loss teams from competing conferences, apart from Florida State losing the opportunity to compete for a championship. Years of failures by the ACC led to a deteriorating environment for the media rights contracts, creating insurmountable financial disparity and threatened imposition of unparalleled withdrawal penalties that could range from $572 million to $700 million. The ACC's chronic fiduciary mismanagement had bad faith and self-dealing led Florida State to sue the ACC in this court for declaratory relief. On January 4, 2024, the Office of Attorney General made a public records request to the ACC for media rights contract requests, given the public interest and severity of the deteriorating situation. To properly educate the ACC about its obligations, the request briefed the ACC on its obligation as an exclusive custodian of public record under Florida case law. Now, as I said, the ACC has exclusive custody of the media rights contracts and unilaterally restricts access. We've talked about that. That is in the lawsuit. That is also in the lawsuit, obviously. We are going to go here. I need to, again, remember, I gave you this warning earlier. I'm going to need to leave the studio for just a moment. I need to leave the studio for just a moment. Give me 5 minutes. And I will be back as soon as possible. We are working on multiple stories here at the same time. So please be patient with me. I will be right back. Okay. All right. We're back. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Okay. What we're going to go to. This is the letter. This is the letter. Now, we're not going to go through the whole lawsuit. I think everybody understands what's going on, what Ashley Mooney, the Attorney General, is suing on. She wants the documents that should be out in public, state of Florida, open records law. This is the letter that Ashley Mooney, the Attorney General, sent to the Atlantic Coast Conference on January 4th. January 4th. Dear Mrs. Hulk, it is this office understanding that the Atlantic Coast Conference, ACC, or you, is in custody of certain records executed by public employees of Florida State University in their official capacity or by you as an agent thereof and in the transaction of official business of Florida State, and that the ACC places restrictions on the location and the availability of such records. Accordingly, the Office of the Attorney General hereby requests the following records: all the financial, business, and membership records of the Atlantic Coast Conference that pertain to Florida State University, directly or indirectly, including but not limited to Mooney also requested in that letter a copy of the Atlantic Coast Conference Grant of Rights Agreement and any other amendments or extensions of the Atlantic Coast Conference Grant of Rights Agreement 2013, including any 2016 extension. The Atlantic Coast Conference's competitive market analysis of 2013. Mooney is also requesting all communications between you and the ESPN Enterprises relating to the Atlantic Coast Conference Grant of Rights Agreement and any amendments, including any ultimatum from ESPN or ESPN Enterprises that have any grant of rights be extended. Requesting a copy of the multimedia agreement dated July 8, 2010 between you, ACC, and ESPN. The amendment and extension agreement dated May 9th, 2012. And the second amendment to the multimedia agreement in 2014. And any other amendments or extensions to the amended ESPN agreement. An executed copy of the 2014 amended multimedia agreement and July 21st, 2016 amended and restated ACC-ESPN multimedia agreement between you and ESPN. With any amendments or extensions, including any August 14th, 2021 option extension. I believe that August 14th, 2021 option extension is when Jim Phillips granted ESPN the option to extend the deadline, right? Of being able to make a decision on distributing ACC's content from 2027 and beyond. That's an option. Mooney wants to read all of that, wants to have it in her hands, the complete and full documents. Mooney also requested any other agreements referred to in the ESPN agreement. Agreements between you and ESPN, including the July 2016 ACC-ESPN network agreement for the ACC's prestige network, ACC network. Any other agreements between you and ESPN, any other agreements between you and Disney, you meaning ACC. Any Atlantic Coast Conference constitutions and bylaws not attached to your complaint in the Atlantic Coast Conference versus the Board of Trustees. Mooney also asked for, in this letter, January 4th, your annual operating budget for 23, 24, and 24 and 25. What is that operating budget? Remember, the bylaws says you got to pay 3 years of the operating budget for the exit fee. Should you deny Florida State Attorney General Mooney, January 4th letter to the ACC, should you deny the agency's request or any part thereof, please state in writing the basis for the denial, including the exact statutory citation authorizing the denial, as required by Section 119.07 Florida statutes. The agency also requests that the custodian of the public records state in writing, with particularly the reasons for the conclusion that the record is exempt or confidential. Then at the bottom here, it says, we ask that you provide these records no later than 10 days from receipt of these requests because they are readily accessible to you, the ACC. Okay, so that is the letter that Mooney sent on January 4th. This is the letter that the ACC sent back to Mooney, Florida State Attorney General, on January 19th. 15 days later. 15 days later, this is the letter the ACC sent back. Dear Attorney General Mooney, I am in receipt of your letter dated January 4th, 2024, which I received on January 10th. In addition, this letter follows up on the conversations that your office had with our attorneys over the past week. We appreciate your willingness to discuss this matter with our counsel. So they did have some discussions before this letter went out. Your letter requests 4 groups of documents: the grant of rights, the amended grant of rights, Florida State 2013-2016. Number 2, all agreements between conference and ESPN or Disney. Number 3, the ACC bylaws. Number 4, the annual operating budgets for the conference 23, 24, 24, 25. I will respond to each of these requests separately as each raises substantially different issues. It talks about how the conference is an uncorporated nonprofit. The ACC is not an agency of the state of Florida. within the meaning of the Public Records Act. In this regard, I note that in your demand for records under the Florida Public Records Act, you cite 2 cases from North Carolina and you support. However, the mere fact that a public entity is a member of the private entity, such as, okay, hold on. Okay, so it takes it one piece at a time. The letter the ACC sent to the Florida State Attorney, the grant of rights, the amended grant of rights, which is already out there in public. Right? It's already out there in public. ACC says that Florida State, they signed it 2013, 2016. Florida State provided a fully executed copy to a blogger in response to this request. So that's not really, I don't think it's really of importance. Mooney already has that. Then the next thing was all agreements between the conference and ESPN or Disney. This was the response. The conference, after approved by its members, has entered into a material media agreements with ESPN over the course of the past 25 years. These are not government contracts, but are commercial agreements between non-government entities. These are not the contracts between Florida State and the conference, therefore are not contracts between a public body and a private entity. So the ACC is making the argument that no, this is not under Florida open record law. It's not a contract. This is not a contract between Florida State and the conference. These agreements contain commercially sensitive and proprietary information which, if publicly disclosed, would harm the conference ESPN ability to negotiate future rights agreement. The conference has an obligation to ESPN as a party to the agreements to protect its fundamental business interests as reflected in the agreements. Courts across the country have protected these types of agreements, including the present agreements between the conference and ESPN. So basically, ACC is saying no can do. We're not going to show you those media rights agreements. We're not doing it. And then another part that Mooney asked for was all bylaws or portions of the ACC Constitution. Paragraph 8 of your request seeks any bylaws or portions of the ACC Constitution which were not attached as exhibits to the North Carolina litigation. As previously stated, the conference is not an agency of the state of Florida, and its constitution and bylaws maintained in North Carolina are not public records. Florida State has access to the Constitution and bylaws without restriction. Each year, the conference transmits to each of its members complete copies of the Constitution and bylaws. So again, I'm not really sure why Mooney is asking for all this other stuff. Maybe she just wants to make sure she grabs every single piece of it, not just the stuff that they can easily access or is sent to them yearly by the conference. The bylaws, the Constitution, the grant of rights. The main part of this is the media rights agreement between ESPN and ACC. That is what Mooney wants to see. And she just filed a lawsuit. She just filed a lawsuit for this to happen. Now, again, before we get to your phone calls, we're working on another story here. We're working on the Pickens County story in South Carolina. Let me give me another moment here. I got to answer someone back. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're live. There's a lot of things going on. We're trying to stay on top of everything here. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Okay. I'm just gonna say. Okay. That is good for now. Whew, baby. Okay, so we covered this. We covered this in a live show. When was it? April 20th, maybe? April 20th. Saturday night is all right for PATC. I think it was April 20th. We have been forwarded information from a handful of people. We're going to go over this again. Because I think this is the angle. This is what Clemson and Florida State, among all the other issues, I think this is what they're really attacking. This is the Achilles heel from their perception. The Achilles heel when it comes to this whole endeavor of the ACC, the money that they're going to have to pay out. It's about that media rights agreement. It's not even about the grant of rights. Clemson and Florida State believes the grant of rights is limited in scope because of what it says in the media rights agreement. And ESPN does not want this out. The ACC does not want this out. I don't know what's in that media agreement, but if we're going to go back to it, I think it's fine to go back to it again this morning, Thursday, April 25th. People sent to us language, and I'm not going to show it to you up on the screen, but I promise you, it is what I read, it is what is written. I'm not adding words, I'm not eliminating words. This is what's written. And there has been no pushback on this. And I have sent this off to people in the media. Let me repeat. I have sent this to people in the media. National media. And you might say, Greg, you're just the fat guy from Minnesota. Who cares if you send it to the media? That's true. I'm a nobody. But just take a look. Just go ahead and take a look at recent follows on my X account. Hint, hint, wink, wink. We have been sending information just like, look, when we broke the USC called the Big Ten, and we talked about it for 3 months before it happened, before anybody woke up to it, we were giving the information to the media. Couple of national media people picked up on it, and everybody else said, Greg, you're crazy, or did not respond, and I don't blame them, because I am crazy. No question about it. My cheese has slipped off my cracker years ago. We're doing the same thing with this story. I do not, how do I say this? I do not embargo information. I don't keep it to myself. We put it out there. We want the college football fan. We want people to know the cloak and dagger. So we received this information from a handful of people. It came through a FOIA request. This is the membership obligation, the language between the University of Texas at Austin and the SEC, and it's effective July 1st, 2024, the day Texas becomes an official member of the SEC. And if this language is anywhere near, or if it's exactly the language that is in the media rights agreement between the ACC, ESPN, and its institutions, ACC institutions, then you understand why the ESPN doesn't want this out. Without, this is the language, membership obligation. This is the language between University of Texas at Austin and the SEC. Without limiting or foregoing effective July 1st, 2024, and continuing for so long as the institution is a member of the SEC, the institution agrees and confirms that the SEC shall control and have the exclusive right to exercise or license all media rights owned or controlled by the institution relating to video, audiovisual coverage for any game or practice of any of the institution's athletic teams to participate in any sport that is a conference-sponsored sport, including without limitation all media rights for any such game or practice of the institution occurring in the institution's campus or in any stadium or arena that is traditional home stadium or arena for any of the institution's athletic teams. The SEC has control, the exclusive right, the media rights of all Texas Longhorns home games of any SEC sponsored sport. All of them. The SEC has the media rights for all of Texas Longhorns home games. None of that comes as a surprise to anybody. Beginning July 4th, 2024. But the language, it all starts with, without limiting the foregoing effective July 4th, 2024, and continuing for so long as the institution is a member of the SEC. A member of the SEC. If this language is used in the ACC-ESPN contract, if it says that ACC schools, if it's basically the institutions that make up the ACC, if it says effective July 1st, 2016, because that's when the last contract was done, without limiting and foregoing effective July 1st, 2016, and continuing for so long as the institution is a member of the ACC, the institution agrees and confirms that the ACC shall control exclusive rights, the media rights of the schools. But what if the school is not a member of the conference? What if Florida State says bye? We're gone July 1st, 2025. That's the date we're be gone. According to this language, if this is what's in the ACC media rights agreement with ESPN, if this is the same type of language or the exact language, then Florida State is no longer, the Gore has no effect on them. Because remember, the ACC Gore said, and you know what, I'll pop it up here in a little bit, but basically it says, and I'm paraphrasing, it's long, but you know what, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole until I pop it up. But again, if that language right here in the membership obligation language between Texas and the SECs, if that was done, if that was the same language that was done in the ACC-SEC media rights agreement, this is why I believe, this is why many people believe. What makes anyone think that the SEC copied from the ACC? They've never done that before. How would we know that it hasn't been done before? We haven't seen the media rights agreement. Maybe it was done. Maybe it was copied. We don't know if that's always been done or never done before. We don't know if it's either extreme or somewhere in the middle. I do know there's a way for us to find out, and that is for people to see the media rights agreement. Is that language in there? We don't know. Remember, the Big 12 and the ACC, they have this basically the same grant of rights. They copied from each other. We showed both of them up on the screen on a live show about a couple weeks ago. Almost the same exact language. The only part of the language that was different was rights granted to ESPN versus rights granted to media partners when it came to the Big 12, because they have more media partners than ESPN. Everything else was the same. So it has been copied when it comes to the ACC, when it comes to the grant of rights. Okay, we're going to open up the phone lines. Phone line 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. The heart of the matter. Attorney General Ashley Mooney. The ACC is asking a state entity to potentially pay and lose more than $500 million, but is refusing to produce the documents related to that outrageous price tag.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours.
What's up, Greg? Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Sweet. So I have a few things I kind of want to speak on as it pertains to the Florida AG Mooney and her position and her reasonings for her behavior, right?
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this to you several times. Ultimately, how I see it, it's the state of Florida versus a nonprofit organization in North Carolina with the backing of a organization in New York, right? And I think, this is just my opinion, I think the AG is trying to get this as like an unofficial way of getting discovery, right?
Yeah.
During the legal proceedings, Florida State is going to ask for the same things. However, the state of Florida wants it. Now, here's why I think that is important. The state of Florida has a war chest of resources when it comes to legal resources, right? If the state of Florida can get these documents and have them reviewed by their lawyers, that's money that Florida State doesn't have to pay, essentially, right? I I do think that it is a coordinated effort between the university and the state AG to find a way to get Florida State out of this contract. And I go back to the point of Disney fought DeSantis in Florida last year, year before last, and lost. There's so much power in the state that any business can't compete with that. I don't care what business you are, the state and the governor and the leadership just has more power that allows them to kind of move in the way that they want to move. I do think the ACC was right in not allowing the state to get those documents, but ultimately, I think it's a moot point, for one. And secondly, I also think, and maybe this is conspiracy theory, but I think there had to have been communications between Clemson and Florida State. And like I've heard this over the past couple of days that Florida is going slower, North Carolina is quicker, it's gonna be faster. But I think North Carolina is gonna join the Florida State case and the Clemson case. And when you join those cases, it's gonna slow down that process. Right?
I mean, that's a interesting point. Yes.
So when you join cases, you have more people involved. It's not going to be as quick and as fast. Whereas in the Florida case, Florida State versus the ACC in Florida, it's one plaintiff, one defendant. So, and I may be in my conspiracy theory, but I think there has been communication, and strategically, Clemson started later because they wanted to make sure that, you know, if it goes down this road where we're actually in court, the North Carolina case is going to be slower. And I take that piece of information along with the information of the way Florida State wrote their case in Florida. It was for a federal case. It was more written for a federal case. So I think ultimately they're playing, if it goes to federal court, we already wrote up our case from a federal standpoint anyway. That way, you know, it'll proceed quicker. But that's just my opinion on logistically how these things are playing out.
Well, I am no expert, obviously. I've proven that over and over again when it comes to these court proceedings. It does interest me on your take and other people's take on Attorney General Mooney she wants an immediate, what does she call it? An immediate response, immediate relief, she wants this to be adjudicated pretty quickly. This point of her and the state of Florida getting their hands on the media rights agreement. She wants this out in public. So I don't know if that's maybe this in effect will be a case of quickening the case going through in the state of in Land County. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Or could that just muddy up the waters even more? I don't know.
For sure. And I think you're onto something there. And I think like I said, I think this is strategic, but I think what got the AG forward-facing in a more vocal way is the North Carolina Business Court decision to waive Florida State's sovereign immunity. Because once you waive the sovereign immunity to a state entity, it has to take it has to kind of make the state officials in Florida perk their ears up, right?
Yeah.
I think once that decision was made, I think from Florida's perspective, not Florida State, but just from Florida's perspective, this is not going to end well, right? Because ultimately, Florida State is a state entity. And I'll just say this too, Greg. I think ACC and ESPN knew about the Florida Sunshine Laws and the public record laws because they're quick to point it out, right? They're quick to point it out in the letters about this, and I think that's why they're hiding what they need to hide. I think they're hiding it because they know if it is exposed or revealed, it'll be crystal clear that the media rights or the GR would be invalidated by the language in the media deal. And the only reason I say that, or one of the main reasons I say that, is if that's the case, you can quickly go to mediation by revealing the documents, go to mediation, it'll be over in a discussion. But I think they know they're going to lose this battle if it's revealed. And I think that's why they're fighting so hard to conceal it.
And then,
that's my only logic.
Yeah, and then you add in the fact that, Judge Cooper, he made a, I don't know if you want to call it an off-the-cuff statement, but he made some statement alluding to the fact that he wasn't really siding at this point. He did not make a ruling. But he did say flat out that he doesn't know of any government agency, any public institution that when they're in an agreement, a contractual agreement, that the document, I'm saying this in a very amateur way, but he said basically he doesn't know any case that document is kept secret out of public. So he was siding with Florida State. Even, nobody was making any arguments on this part of it, but he voluntarily put it out there that it's going to take a lot for the ACC. It's an uphill battle for the ACC in ESPN to keep that media agreement under lock and key in the state of Florida. That was my interpretation. Very amateur speculation on my part, but he volunteered that. Judge Cooper volunteered that during one of the proceedings. I think it was maybe the April 9th proceeding. But go ahead, finish it up, BJ.
Yeah, I do think he said in every word, in every way, ACC, you're going to lose this case in Florida. You're going to lose it. So mediate. And the ACC is kind of, up to this point, has been stubborn. And I would say this: I saw a comment in the comment section that talked about you can't hide behind one state's laws when you have to look at other states' laws. That's not a factual statement. And the state of Florida only has to worry about the state of Florida's laws.
Yeah.
If there's a disagreement between laws between different states, that is pushed up to federal court. But Florida doesn't have to worry about North Carolina's public record laws. North Carolina doesn't have to worry about Florida's public record laws, really. And I'll just say this too, and I'll get off the line because I know other people want to come in here and give their take. This is about the North Carolina. I finally come to a realization on North Carolina's strategy. I think North Carolina will only file once they're forced to. I think, and what I'm looking for the North Carolina is a February 25th date for the extension of the grant of rights. I think if the grant of right is not extended, that would be the event that forces North Carolina to file.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think they're going to file.
Yeah, there's a lot of complicating factors with North Carolina, even trying to make the decision to file. We talked about that in the live show. I don't think anything is imminent out of North Carolina. But I do appreciate the call, BJ.
You have a blessed day, Greg.
You got it, buddy. Thank you so much. BJ, once again, great, fantastic call. Ryan Willie, like I said before, it's all political. More than ever, this realignment wave This implosion, politicians are going to be involved like no other. We said that months ago, and it's all playing out. Ryan Willie, thank you, Evil Badger, for the incredible generosity you have shown this channel over and over and over again. Thank you so much for your super chat. Ryan Willie, like I said before, it's all political. Minnesota Seminoles. Sunshine laws are probably the reason why the ACC decided not to move their office to Orlando. UNC has already been neutered by their state.
Call from
JD.
JD, can you hold on for just one moment, sir?
Yes, sir.
I do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and open up your notifications. Turn those on because we can come on it live anytime. We were on live last night, this morning. We could come on live again later today. So make sure when you subscribe to our channel, have your notifications turned on, and also smash that like button if you like our content. JD, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours. The Attorney General, Mooney, has acted for the state, for Florida State. What do you think?
Well, I was kind of giving you a tip-off yesterday that I believe that was about to happen. Usually they give you hints before they act, or at least politicians do, and I'm sure even maybe those in North Carolina knew it was about to happen. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to keep this pretty simple, but just think about what recourse the state of Florida has if the ACC doesn't comply with their records requests. If the ACC is non-compliant, and then what if this goes and the judge orders the ACC to comply, but they don't? I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how all this works. Maybe Justin or somebody else can pop in and comment on this. What recourse does the state of Florida have at that point? From what I understand, and I've asked this question to a couple lawyers and I'm waiting for a response, the state of Florida can eliminate the ACC's ability to conduct business in the state of Florida.
Can you repeat that last part?
If the ACC defies the laws of the state of Florida, my question is, or my assumption is, the state of Florida can remove the ACC's ability to conduct business in the state of Florida.
You know what? I think I saw. You posted that right on X?
I posted that, yeah. and I'm looking, and I'm waiting for a response. And again, I only posted it a few minutes ago.
Oh,
so,
I thought you. Okay, maybe. Okay.
Yeah. So but I know the state of Florida has done other things. They have removed other. Again,
yeah.
There's things that they've done, but I was trying to think about what would the recourse be for the state if the ACC defies. The state of Florida doesn't have to allow the ACC to conduct business if it's defying state law.
Well, I would gather, maybe I'm just being naive on this, but I would gather that the ACC,
settlement would happen long before then.
Well, that and the ACC will follow the court's ruling. They're going to appeal it, they're going to delay it, they're going to appeal it, and then some settlement will happen before then. But I get what you're saying. In theory, that's probably correct. But I think in practice, if it played out the whole way, I think the ACC not given what the Attorney General requested isn't the same thing as, of course, not following the state laws. If a judge ruled that the ACC had to follow the state laws, I'm pretty sure the ACC would do so. I just don't think it's going to
Well,
come
yeah,
to that, right? So,
I agree with you, but the reason I'm putting that out there is I'm not saying all that would happen. I'm saying is, what's the end game? What if, and this is the big what if, they just defy. They're like, well, we're a North Carolina corporation. Florida law doesn't apply to us. Well, you forget a large percentage of their business is conducted in the state of Florida, and the state of Florida can say, all right, you're out.
yeah.
You're out. And that's the end game. In other words, that is the final straw that breaks it. Will it ever get to that? No. But that's the enforcement mechanism the state of Florida has.
Yeah.
So in other words, she's going to get what she wants eventually. And because the only reason I'm bringing this up is I had read some places this morning that people were saying, well, what can the Florida really do? What can they really do? Well, they could just make it where you can't conduct business in Florida. And if you can't conduct business in Florida, you can't be in a contract with a Florida public institution. I don't know what that means with Miami being a private institution. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it complicates matters. You understand?
Yeah.
So that was it. It'll never come to that. This is going to get settled. I'm not so certain it isn't already settled. But
what isn't?
Well, let me back up there.
I mean, there's been people who've been reporting, or whatever you want to call it, that this has been settled for months, and it hasn't been. I mean, eventually one of these guys are going to be correct, but I don't know how these guys know all this stuff. We don't.
Well, there's a few of them that say things that I don't give them much credence, and then there's a few of them that say things even though it seems somewhat dramatic. And if you go back on the timeline, now they've been on the money. Sometimes they're vague, but they're not vague. There's reasons they're vague, but they're not so vague that they're going to be right no matter what the result is. No, you can put the pieces together later. But anyway, yeah. I'm talking in a way that people not knowing what the information is and what I'm talking about specifically, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about in the first place. So, but anyway, but yeah, that's all. And if you bring up anything else or you have another show later today, maybe I'll call and comment about that. But that was just, from what I understand, that's the enforcement mechanism that the state would be to remove them from the ACC or remove the ACC from Florida. And so that's why I just think this summer, I think this is going to be either resolved one way or the other. And I'm not even saying the lawsuits are going to be resolved. It's just all this is escalating now, and it's escalating even more so on, it seems like, a condensed timeline. I don't believe people are doing this for exits in 2025 and 2026. FSU wants out this year, and I'm not saying they're not playing the 2024 ACC schedule, and I'm not even saying they're not playing 2024 as an ACC member. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is they don't want to still be going through the exit process next summer. They want that to be determined for whatever that is. They want that to be determined this summer. And then the exit date is the exit date. If they're playing in another conference in 2025 or 2026, whatever, but the exit gets determined this summer, and I believe that. Mm-hmm. I do believe that. Whatever happens, whether it's a settlement or a forced exit, and they're independent for a while, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying is I don't know what that looks like.
What you're saying, JD, what you're saying is Florida State Seminole football team is not going to be in the ACC conference for the 2025 season. Right?
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Now, I will concede that there is a chance either some type of exit is made known this summer before the kickoff in Ireland, that some sort of an exit is made known. I will concede that potentially if there was a settlement, they would agree to play in the 2025 season. I would just about 100% guarantee they will not be an ACC member in 2026. I don't think they're going to be an ACC member in 2025. But if there was a significant reduction in settlement or in exit costs by them playing a 2025 season, they're going to do that. Yeah.
Front Office Sports, Amanda Krisovich puts on an article, and I just want to read you one part of it, because basically everybody's saying the same thing. If you've just joined us, we've covered this really extensively. If you missed it, go back at the start of our live show. We went through the documents. We went through the letters between Mooney on January 4th to the ACC, the letters from the ACC to Attorney General Mooney of Florida on January 19th. We've been through the lawsuit. We've covered it all. But I just want to show you something from Front Office Sports, Amanda Krisovich, who does such an incredible job. And she's got sources. Front Office Sports, very good publication. Let me just show you this little part here. Once I figure out how to work this channel. The lawsuit alleged the ACC was wrongfully withholding media contracts from the public and the Attorney General. The content of these contracts was essentially kept under lock and key, could decide whether Florida State is on the hook for $500 million in exit fees. Most of the article goes back and forth, everything that we've discussed. Now, but she added in this part. Right here. While ESPN is not a party to this particular lawsuit, it will likely have something to say. While ESPN is not a party to this lawsuit from Attorney General Mooney from the state of Florida, it will likely have something to say. The network had previously filed a brief in the ACC's countersuit against Florida State, arguing that the media rights agreement should be filed under seal and therefore kept from the public. But then again, Florida State keeps pushing it, and the Attorney General just got in on the action. The lawsuit is the latest in a larger trend of state attorneys general involving themselves in college sports business through litigation. The ACC did not immediately respond to the request of this comment. So Front Office Sports is saying that ESPN will likely have something to say. And that gets back again to the eventual speculation of what Florida State's going to do after they get that settlement, because there's going to be some dollar figure attached to all of this, ladies and gentlemen, and Florida State is going to write the check. But that gets us to the speculation. Once again, we at Peek Around the Corner, I think everybody basically has the same take on this one, that the chalk says Florida State to the Big Ten, and one of the biggest reasons is the relationship angle to this. The relationship between Florida State and ESPN is basically non-existent, or if it is, it's toxic. But then again, ESPN, SEC might have more control over the end game of all this stuff. So I don't think any of us can completely shut the door on the possibility of the Seminoles to the SEC. But JD, just asking for your quick analysis of this. Is this more fire to the relationship, the destruction of the relationship between Florida State and ESPN when the Attorney General of the state of Florida comes in like this on a lawsuit today? What do you think, JD?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Florida State's going to the Big Ten. I think that's the path they've chosen. You and I may agree or disagree on what communications have happened or what third party communications or whatever, and and I'm not saying we disagree. I'm just saying, I think the reason the chalk is because there's certain things have been quote unquote worked out. There's certain understandings that have been established, and however that has been done. Yes, nothing is formal. There's no contract sitting on a table waiting for a signature. No, but there's been assurances made. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be doing this. But there's one other thing going back to A.G. Mooney to take into consideration. The allegations of self-dealing and potential fraudulent activity made by the ACC, that's one thing when it's civil. But now when an attorney general for a state gets involved, there's much larger implications involved.
Yeah.
And that would I heard Tristan's call yesterday, and I have made some of those same assertions in the past about Tobacco Road and things that I believe there were things that they don't want to be shown in the light of day, and A.G. Moody's involvement was planned, and it was going to happen in a particular time frame. This isn't a one-off. She didn't decide to do this 2 weeks ago. This has been part of the plan, is my opinion, and from what other people have hinted, and it's some coordinated events, and I think we're getting close to the end. I'm not saying it happens in 2 weeks. It might be 2 months, and I could be completely wrong, and it happens next year.
Yeah.
But with the escalation of the timeline and all the players starting to enter into the fight, it just seems like when you're what are we, 3 months, 4 months out to August 15th? What are we, 4 months? I'm not even doing the math here. No. It's fixing to be May, so it's not coincidental that all this is happening. A lot of this is happening now. So anyway,
all right, JD, I gotta get to more phone calls. We got more breaking news.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Beautiful. Love your call once again, Mr. Seminole JD.
I appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks.
Beautiful. We got more breaking news here. Hold on.
Call from
Immaculate.
We got more breaking news. Hold on.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that you had breaking news.
Got it. Matt Baker, initial judge assigned to the Florida Attorney General's complaint against the ACC is Angela Dempsey, undergrad from San Diego State, MA from Florida State, and JD from the University of Florida. Angela Dempsey is the initial judge. I'm going to have to go on the Leon County. I'm going to have to see if there's been any. There probably isn't anything scheduled yet, but they've already put a judge on this Attorney General complaint, and it's not Judge C. Cooper. Go ahead, Immaculate. The floor is yours.
Yeah, on that part, I mean, I don't remember the exact wording, but it sounded like they were pushing for like an immediate hearing.
Yes. Yep.
And with his whole situation going on over there, this basically means that these two, someone had asked, like, could these two cases be merged? And I don't think it's even possible to have like a civil trial like that. Just to merge that case with an AG, I don't think that's even possible. But being in different courts, that's definitely going to be impossible, and especially with expediency. I mean,
one of the things I'm saying is this blows up the whole timeline. Like, and I think that's relevant. I think that's not just coincidence.
Yeah.
You could say it's arguing to different degrees, but the Florida team kind of fumbled the ball a little bit, and now here comes in the AG pushing the situation. Could be coincidental. I tend to think not. It's also very interesting with the timing of the Florida State AD just happened to be visiting in Chicago. That could just be coincidence.
Yeah.
Because that was a pre-planned schedule of visits to boosters, which, in all fairness, the Birmingham Florida State boosters also got a visit on this trip. So, Birmingham, Alabama, we all know what's there. So I just find it interesting that of 6 to 8 stops, 2 of those also happen to be where the headquarters of the competing conference interests are. People can think on that what they want. I'm certainly not going to declare anything.
I'll tell you what. I'm just going to cut in real quick. I'll tell you what, Immaculate. I think I can say this. There was 2 different conversations with 2 different ACC universities in 2 different cities. I would say, in fact, hold on. Hold on. I'm sorry. Give me a moment here, Immaculate.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a moment. I know you're a busy man. Just give me a moment. Since I opened up this door, we're going to walk through it.
Okay.
See. Four months ago, a little bit more than 4 months ago, 2 different universities, 2 different sets of representatives from 2 different ACC universities had some sit-down third-party talks in 2 different cities. And I kind of alluded this in a live show months ago when I was talking about how we knew Clemson was having very serious third party, like they were getting some positive information, not first party talks. Okay. Right. They're not sitting down with the SEC and the Big Ten, but there was some evaluation, some information shared, some what do we call it? Networking. Mm-hmm. That's what it was called. From 2 universities of the ACC in 2 different cities. One of them right outside of Columbus, Ohio, and the other one was in the heart of Chicago. Those 2 events happened. It was third-party stuff. It wasn't first-party stuff, but it was some money purchases were there. We know it happened, and we'll just leave it at that. So when I saw that picture of, people are saying, well, it doesn't really mean nothing. Maybe it doesn't. But you know what? There's networking going on, guys and gals. I don't know how to say it. There's a lot of reasons to go to Chicago. Lots of reasons to go to Chicago. Lots of reasons to go to Rosemont. But when you're there, you can do a few other things while you're there. And he probably did a few other things. We're talking about Mike Alford. But go ahead, Immaculate.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, people connected to people will have a conversation and say, well, I heard this. And when they're saying that, get told. And then the other person says, well, that's very interesting because I heard this. And it just turns into these type of conversations that are like that. But also, I pointed this out when they created the Big Ten showcase down in the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. I was pointing it out, how it's kind of showcasing the new coast-to-coast branding. And, it's not necessarily just about that. It's about creating a reason to be there, to maybe, go to the restaurant across the street, be sitting at the bar at a certain amount of time, at a certain time, when a certain someone else just happens to walk into that same bar and happens to sit on the stool right next to you, and there's no way to track it whatsoever. When you're in Chicago and you're meeting with the FSU Booster Club that's there, and you happen to go into a restaurant, at a bar, you sit down, have a drink, someone sits next to you and talks to you, there's no way to track it. The reason for being there is to speak to the boosters. So that's kind of how those type of things happen is, you know, as you say, it's cloak and dagger.
Cloak and dagger. Michael Alford, I got it up on the screen right here. Love visiting great Knowles in the Windy City. And then he's got at Seminole Booster. Michael Alford, the athletic director. That's Lake Michigan, correct?
That might actually be the Chicago River.
Oh, yeah. That might be the river. You're right.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
It might be actually where it's emptying out into the lake there, right behind them back there.
Yes.
Where all the buildings end, but I do believe that's technically the river.
Yeah, I think it is too. I've been there, so.
Yeah, but when I saw this, I was just like, oh, come on. Like, even if it's not planned to meet with them there, he's going to meet with someone. Like if he did not, he would not be doing his duty. Like, honestly, like I don't think that his main plan when they set it up was to meet with Big Ten officials. It was to meet with the boosters there because the boosters there have probably been very busy.
Yeah,
they've been probably talking to a lot of people there. So it was probably to talk to them first and foremost. But the fact that it's Chicago and the fact that he also went to Birmingham on like an 8-city schedule, that's a quarter of your visits. Like those were picked on purpose.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I thought that was interesting. In terms of the AG situation, just to finish up here, so someone else can get on.
Yep.
I posted something like my honest opinion, not just trying to make a flashy statement, but if this does not bring about a settlement, Greg, I don't know what does. I mean, the AG of a state with sunshine laws is coming at you and possibly going to force discovery. And what we're seeing is like very immediate hearings. Like this isn't going to have some long timeline where you get to sit back and go, all right, what do we want to do with this? Like this is going to happen quick. Like the whole timeline battle between the two states, that's over. If you're ESPN and you're not even sure about opting in, I've seen arguments on both sides that are fair, but for right now, ESPN has not chosen to opt in with the ACC. You're looking at this going, this is not worth the risk. I mean, if these trade secrets, if these agreements are really that valuable to keep protected, you don't want to go into this fight. I mean, we've seen it. These, lawyers, the reality is when you're in court, because they don't often go to court, is, they might overlook things. They might mess up something. The judge might have to sit there and handhold them through their. Guess who the judge never has to handhold? The AGs, because this is not new to them.
Mm-hmm.
This is where they live. That's why law firms go and hire people who worked in the attorney general's office to come in and be their court attorneys, because you've got lots of experience. So, and these guys who right now are working for the ACC, I don't think they're criminal attorneys. If you're looking at this and you're saying, well, what if the AG wants to push the fraudulent charges side of this? Maybe, I don't know what's there, but I don't think they want to take this on. This just went from, kind of a push and shove civil litigation fight where you're pushing for positioning at the settlement table to now saying this is much more serious and much more personal. And I don't think you really want to tangle with an AG. It's just, especially when they have all the laws on their side in their state.
Now,
I don't know.
I want the PATC community to keep their head on a swivel. I know I'm going to here in the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue, Immaculate, because I'm waiting to see when the date of that hearing is, right? When does it get scheduled? I forget what the lady's name is, the judge that has taken the case in Leon County. Angela something another.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know when when that gets scheduled, right? That's the next piece of information that I'm waiting for to get dropped, and we're still waiting. And we got more information today on it. I'm not going to go and talk about it on this live show, but we're still waiting on the Pickens County amended complaint from Clemson, which still hasn't dropped yet. And it was filed electronically to all the lawyers in the case 8 days ago, but it hasn't dropped on the Pickens County docket. So we're waiting on that.
Yeah, I don't know how long it takes to put this together, and you kind of have to give the other side some time too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the next thing we actually see in court is this AG's hearing. Like it might be that quick.
Yeah.
Because it's just an initial hearing. I imagine there's going to be some motions filed once again, but we might not even get that far, right? Like just the threat of it alone.
Yeah.
I mean, if they come to Florida State and Clemson and say 150 million, 175 million, I don't know, 200 million, whatever. Like,
yeah.
Let's just do this. Because we already know that they've had settlement talks before. Like, this isn't like they've just
they've had
winding up.
Yeah.
So, that's my thought on that. Is if this doesn't do it, I don't know what does. I don't know what else you have to do, because the threat now from an AG is you're not just saying fraud as a civil attorney. It's an AG that if they say that word, they can actually back that up with real charges. That you do not want, because now all of a sudden you might be on the hook for damages to the state of Florida. That's not a good place to be. So we'll see. I'm kind of interested to see what people have to say about that. I think we could have this real quick, and if we don't, then I think we're in for a long haul. I think it's that serious what she's doing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, man.
You got
Talk
it.
to you again here soon. Have yourself a good day.
Yeah, you got it. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Hot Guy, Immaculate. Great call once again.
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Mr. Hurricane Rock and Rant is on the line. The floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good, and I apologize in advance and steer me back if I missed something you covered already, because I've been watching, but also having to deal with work now and then.
Go ahead.
So
let it rip.
I'm of mixed opinions, not in like the value of this, but because I think that what the AG did today is potentially game-changing and can accelerate all the timelines. I don't know whether you touched on I did send you an article, like a passage prologue in a different way about this, when Charlie Crist weighed in as Attorney General on behalf of an actual private institution from Miami.
I saw that. I'm not been able to get to it, but go ahead.
Yes. So essentially, just my point being that Florida Attorney Generals, regardless of the administration, have had an impact on conference conversations in the past, and not just for a state-owned entity. When Miami was getting out of the Big East and going to the ACC, and there were lawsuits there from the Big East against the ACC in Miami, Florida also stepped in there. So this is definitely not the first rodeo of attorneys general in the state of Florida getting involved, and it wasn't only about a public institution where they have even more standing. Like, basically my point being that the attorney generals in Florida will fight for their institution, private or public, when it comes to going against big entities like this. Ironically, now the tables are turned against the ACC, who was once their friend is now their foe.
Yeah.
So I do think that I don't believe in complete coincidences. I don't believe at all that this didn't come in very quick order due to the at least timing L that Florida State took in court on Monday, not a real one, but just the added time, which is an issue. So I agree with the callers that have said that. The thing I'm not as sure on and I'm granted that they're different, is ESPN is owned by Disney, which is the company. They're not going to be super fearful of the attorney general, right? Depending upon their degree of fear about the media rights getting out or not. Like optically, they clearly don't want it out from the trade secret perspective, but they also went to battle for 2 years with the governor of Florida over revenue sources that generate way more value for them, and they didn't settle. So I just wonder, when it's all said and done, how much fear it is over this specific thing on a lesser overall value situation to them. Though I do think it certainly increases the pressure to settle. I wouldn't assume anything when it comes to ABC, ESPN, Disney against anything in Florida after the last 3 years of who fears who.
Yeah. The fear, I think the fear comes out of ESPN though, right? This is the one stick that Florida State and other ACC institutions have with ESPN. The threat of this being opened up in public, this media rights agreement, that fear might drive ESPN to get more involved and to say to ACC, okay, it's time to have some discussions with.
Oh yeah, I think it's very likely for
Yeah.
sure. I'm just throwing out that, don't make the assumption generally, because
Yeah.
ESPN's still a kid living in Bob Iger's house, right? And the attorney general is still somebody working under the governor's house, and they don't exactly have this history of settling things amicably fast.
Sure. Sure.
and-
Let me ask you a question. You got time for a question?
I do.
Now, I obviously, between the fan bases, Florida State, Seminoles, and the Hurricanes, they go at it quite a bit. All that is natural. All that is good. But I'm talking about the university. At the university level. Obviously, one's a public institution, one's a private institution, but they both have interest, somewhat protected and looked out after in the state of Florida when it comes to politics and all that. But as an institutional level, between Florida State and Miami, I wonder if, and I just want to hear your opinion on it, if there is, how do I say this? We have been told here at Peek Around the Corner, we made this really clear months ago, that it was actually North Carolina and Clemson that were holding hands. It wasn't Clemson and Florida State, even though they all been talking, even though they all been communicating, obviously. I mean, they're not even voting. They're all in the same group. None of them voted. None of them wanted expansion. None of them are participating in suing Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, those three institutions. But none of them, I'm wondering if Miami, and I might get everybody upset here, I'm wondering if Miami and Florida State are not more close than people realize when it comes to the end game of all this going on. I have some beliefs that there's actual communication, maybe not coordination, but Miami is aware of everything, and there might be a hooking of themselves together in the end game of all this. What do you think about the institutional relationship between Florida State and the University of Miami?
So I have a take. It has some degree of informed speculation, and I know that there'll be people who just think it's wish casting on my part, and that's completely fair as well. Is that, to me, if I'm trying to step back from it, Miami and Florida State's brands and being what they are, and granted, Florida State has had a much better run over the last few years, but just like historically, the reason why a portion of both DNA is because they played each other, right? Everybody knows that series. That's what got them there. And maybe it's wish casting, but as annoying as it is perceptionally, the votes that we believe that Miami may have taken in these things, even I, who had a lot of skepticism on a Julio Frank kind of person, but not as much skepticism with the current people behind there, thinks it would be insane to think that Miami would risk the possibility of severing a relationship with Florida State over votes blindly, knowing that, hey, if it's not working in a certain direction and we wind up different conferences, maybe there's so much vitriol behind there that Miami-Florida State series goes away, because that would be brutal for Miami, probably more than even for Florida State, but I think it's not a good look for both of those. It's my opinion and take that Florida State knows exactly what Miami's doing. And even if there's a reason for the votes that are going in there, I don't know that that's true. Like, I have a hard time as a fan liking it or anything like that. But I also heard about Miami as a Big Ten well before I ever saw Florida State fans getting excited about the Big Ten. Like, those are conversations that have been in the ether in the Miami world, and people could care about that crap and actually get into it. Not since last year, because even last year at this time, I would have thought that Florida State was more likely for the SEC, even though the Big Ten was out there. It's, from now forward is when my perception of the Florida State move to the Big Ten has happened. Miami was talking about this before. People don't know necessarily if there was a Big Ten connection because of Donna Shalala leaving from Wisconsin, going to the Clinton administration, and then coming to be president of Miami. She still has massive DNA in the Big Ten with her connections, even though there's been turnover. Miami fans love to kill her, and I understand as well that thing. But I do know for a fact that she's been part of the conversations around AAU and around Big Ten conversations. So I think your speculation has a lot of merit. I can't, give the smoking gun that you can then do the holy smokes document to. But I would err on that. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm hoping for it to be the case, because it will just completely annoy me. But enough people have talked to me about that I think that if you gave me $10 and I had to bet one way or the other, I don't think that Florida State's been shocked by any vote that Miami has taken, even if they didn't like it. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if there's information. And I know somebody earlier in the call that I did hear about that there's colluding between Clemson and Florida State in these lawsuits. Like, they could talk to each other all they want. It's not even collusion. It's just cooperation. That's not, it's not like ESPN and Fox talking to each other to rip apart the conference. It's just not the same thing. And to one person actually brought up that I did hear in the conversations around all of this, that maybe having all these schools come in is going to make it more complicated. Well, that actually might be a reason why all the schools haven't filed together or added on to stuff, to make it less complicated, to keep the clearest path in any particular state clean without, the Florida State case with the ACC in Florida is a cleaner case without a private institution like Miami also being part of it, even if Miami then moves forward with it. So again, that's just pure speculation on my part that someone could probably rip apart in the next call. But
do you have time for one more question?
Sure.
Dylan Edwards, when is he scheduled to be visiting Miami?
They're working on all of these guys for this weekend, from Damian to the two Michigan State tackles who just went into the portal.
Sure, yes.
By the way, we're all old enough to remember when the portal was nothing last week, right? It certainly has gone crazy the last 3 or 4 days, as people had speculated. So maybe somewhere between it was a washout and it was insane. It's at least somewhat degree of crazy. Yes. My understanding from the people who talk about this, and I listen on, is that Miami is potentially in the market for actually getting 2 running backs, so that they both don't get enough wear and tear on themselves, so they can both go to the NFL draft. But I think it's probably going to be in either or situation, because NIL is NIL and people are going to have their budgets. But I think Miami's going in big, if they can, right? Because you have to have 2 willing parties to accept the deal, and a lot of these players are going to have a lot of great offers in both money and opportunity. I think Miami's going to get big because they see what they have in Cam Ward and some of the other stuff, and they want to have a winning season on the books, period, for the program, for Mario, as well as theoretically, perceptionally, which I don't know if a one-year record means anything in this conference realignment mess, but you might as well look as good as possible when people are trying to figure out who they wanted to date for a long time.
All I know, and I'll end the phone call with this, Rock and Rant. All I know, Mario Cristobal, listen to me, Mario Cristobal, because I know you're watching this show right now. When you have a quarterback, when you have a running back that's doing some damage out in the field, give him the ball. It's okay to have an RB1. I don't like this sharing the ball with all your running backs that Cristobal seems to always do. You know what I'm saying?
I don't disagree. The flip side, right? Like if you're running backs, in theory, is you want to get enough good stats to put yourself in the best position for the NFL. You also don't want to go into the NFL when running back as a position has been devalued in the draft with quote unquote too much wear and tear. So there's a fine spot between where people might want to go. I think you feed the horse, right? If you get somebody who's a thoroughbred and they're running, I think you go down that road. Right now, I guess I'm personally just hoping we get a horse. Because our running back room is looked like a strong suit when the season ended and does not look as much due to injuries and transfers out at this point. So hopefully that happens.
I appreciate the call, Mr. Hurricane, Rock and Rant.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Gonna post something here. Todd Helmick, owner of college football website nationalchamps.net, an official Heisman and Biletnikoff Award voter. He played at Florida State, is reporting the following. Florida State Chicago booster event.
Call from
Crab Cakes and Football.
Crab Cakes and Football. Can you hold on just a moment, sir?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Todd Helmick, Heisman Trophy voter and Biletnikoff Award voter, put out a tweet about 20 minutes ago, 19 minutes ago. The Florida State Chicago booster event. Comments yesterday by Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford in attendance with head coach Mike Norvell about the importance of Chicago to Florida State fan base moving forward. He expects to be in the Windy City much more starting this summer. Michael Alford in attendance with head coach Mike Norvell about the importance of Chicago to the Florida State fan moving forward. He expects to be in the Windy City much more starting this summer. Holy smokes. Oh my God. And again, for those Seminole fans in the chat room, for the Clemson fans in the chat room, for those outside the Big Ten, I don't have to tell Crab Cakes and Football this, but Chicago is the center point of the Big Ten, and it's always going to be. It doesn't mean it's, I don't know how to put it, but it is, Rosemont is the building, it's the front office, it's where the Big Ten headquarters is. But Chicago is where everybody, it's like the great golf course of the Big Ten. It is where things get done. And for those Florida State Seminole fans and others who, people question I don't think we're going to get these questions anymore. I think these questions are done with. The question, like Northwestern, they should get kicked out of the Big Ten. I'm going to tell you something, guys. Northwestern's never going to get kicked out of the Big Ten. Northwestern is the Big Ten. Chicago is the Big Ten. Northwestern was one of the original members, along with Wisconsin, Purdue, Minnesota, Michigan. Northwestern is a Big Ten university. They can go 1-11 in football for the next 20 years. And they're going to be a Big Ten member. They're building a new stadium, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in the heart. So Chicago is it's the melting pot. It's where everybody goes to talk business. Everybody. From Piscataway to Los Angeles to where Crab Cakes and Football is driving his truck, where I'm sitting here, the fat guy from Minnesota. Chicago is the hub of the Big Ten. Just like Dallas is the hub, just like Birmingham is the hub, Chicago is the hub. So, when Michael Alford says he expects to be in the Windy City much more starting this summer, come on. He's given everybody like a, look, this is our goal. This is what we're trying to do. This is where you have to go if you want to get that stuff done. If you see me here in the Windy City in the next couple of months, well, anyways, Crab Cakes and Football. The floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. We're awfully busy here at Peek Around the Corner. We are incredibly busy.
Oh, yeah. Cooper, before he hit the reset button, what was the very next thing he was going to decide on? It was a discovery of some sort, right? The one that he
Judge
didn't
C.
get to
Cooper,
before.
in the next 10 days, Judge C. Cooper, they want to... the Florida State lawyers have to redo their complaint.
They got to redo their complaint. But I meant the third thing that they had to do. The one was to stay, which they voted against, and then they were going to dismiss, which they kind of, sort of, but not really dismiss. And then the next one was going to be about just some sort of discovery. They never got to that because they got hung up on the dismiss and got to redo the case.
Yeah.
So now here comes the AG who's like, well, man, we got 90 days or so before we're going to be back in court again, and we really got to get this, discovery out there. So I think it was perfectly timed by the AG to sit there and say, we want discovery now, since we got at least 90 days before anything happens. Now we can proceed on trying to get that instead of waiting on Judge Cooper to get that far. So I think it's kind of like forcing the court's hand, because Cooper never got to the discovery part because he's still hung up on a dismiss because of the way they filed. So now here comes the AG. Okay, we want to see what the documents are saying. So it's like they're pushing the ball forward where Florida State can't. And because they're a state institution and the AG can overlook the state institutions, they just advanced the court case on purpose. So I think that's a nifty move by them. And I know ESPN and everyone's going to, no pun intended, it's going to be like a crab inside of a pot, and we take one, take all. But
yeah,
I think that was a nifty move by the AG. She chimed in at the right time to get the discovery going, so that way it's not sitting in limbo for 90 plus days or even more. And then my next thing is, I'm just going to go by what Michael Irvin said. Michael Irvin was asked about Florida State and Miami, and he said, one can't go without the other. That is their mindset down in Miami, and that's their mindset in Florida State. They probably don't voice it as much right now because of the court proceedings going on, but I think they're tied at the hip, maybe not court-wise, but just respect for each other, state pride, and the fact that they play each other literally every year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think they're to UCLA, USC. I think they're to Oregon, Washington. They're to Ohio State and Michigan. They are the Florida State and Miami. So that's that. And I had a third point, and darn if I didn't forget what it was. So I'm not going to worry about trying to figure it out now.
Yeah.
So, but that's all I want to say.
You got it.
Have yourself a good day.
I appreciate it. Crab cakes and football, Mr. Terrapin.
All right,
Great
later.
call, sir. Thank you. Jalen Berger, former Michigan State and Wisconsin running back, has a scheduled visit to UCLA for next weekend. Jalen Berger visiting UCLA Bruins.
Call from
Tristan Fibes.
Tristan, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, Greg. Well, I guess we got an answer to the who's the third lawsuit going to be.
Yeah.
So listen, I just wanted to reassert what I was saying yesterday and then paint a little bit more of the picture here. If you look at all of the court cases that are happening, what have we seen so far? Okay. In one of the cases up in North Carolina, we've seen, I think, Judge Bledsoe accept that it was okay for the ACC to ignore their own bylaws, right, when it came to filing early.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the vote officially, and then they backfilled the vote, right, and he's fine with it. Are we going to see Judge Bledsoe extend the same flexibility to Florida State, or is he going to demand that Florida State follow the bylaws? I think we all know the answer to that. Time will tell, okay? But you're going to be seeing a judge in North Carolina let the ACC break whatever bylaw they need to break to do what they want to do, and he's going to hold FSU to the bylaws. Okay? We'll just see how that unfolds.
Yeah.
And that gets to the cesspool comment that I made yesterday. And I think, and then, of course, what does the ACC do in the court cases in Florida? They're told to produce the contract, and they refuse to produce it. So now you have a legal entity in another state saying, we need to see this document, and the ACC is saying, no, we're not going to turn that over to you. You don't get to see that. So they're telling a state agency, you know, FSU is part of the state of Florida. They receive funding from the state, okay? They're being told, you got to pay us, you know, $580 million for the grant of rights. You got to pay us $120 million for the exit fee. But we don't have to produce the document that supports the fact that you have to pay those amounts. Okay?
Yeah.
That's absurd on the face of it. And you see the two different attitudes playing out in the two different venues. In North Carolina, they don't have to follow their own bylaws of the conference. They can do whatever they want. In the state of Florida, you have a legal entity, you know, a state entity saying, hey, we need to see the document. And they're saying, no, you don't need to see that. And they refuse to hand it over. And so I'm going to reiterate, you know, North Carolina is a cesspool. And what I think is really being said here by the state of Florida, by this AG, I applaud her actions. What she's really saying is, if you jerkwads in North Carolina think you're going to get $500 million from us, you're crazy. Produce the document that requires it, or else you're not going to get a dime. Mm-hmm. That's what's going on here.
Yeah.
And we know the playbook of the ACC, Greg. They're going to do the same thing they did to Maryland. They're going to withhold revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to reiterate. You said earlier in this show, you made the comment, there's some number that will be reached for a settlement. Okay? That's a possibility. I'm not going to discount that completely. That's a possibility. Okay? Mm-hmm. That number might be the withheld revenue Florida State's mind might be made up. We're not paying them anything. They're going to withhold the revenue. We know that's what they're going to do. And when that happens, we're out. And there is not a court in the land that's going to make the state of Florida pay $500 million to a bunch of jerkwads in North Carolina.
And I gotta believe that the next time Florida State is scheduled to get a payment from the ACC, I think that might be June 1st. For whatever reason, that date is in my mind.
Yeah, I think you're right, Greg. I think it was at the end of spring, somewhere either right at the end of spring or beginning of summer. But it's for the 2023 media payouts where they're scheduled to get that.
Yes, yeah.
And and so we know that this is what they did with Maryland. They'll do the same thing with Florida State. And I think Florida State is smart enough to know this. I mean, they've had an 11 or 12 year head start on figuring out what to do about all this. They know the revenue is going to be withheld. Their strategy is built around that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to get a dime from the ACC, which is fine. We know that's what the ACC is going to do. I think their strategy is built around that, and that's going to end up being the cost of them leaving. It's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. Now, again, the ACC might come forward with a settlement number that satisfies FSU, and they end up paying it. But I think there's a great chance that that's not going to happen. And instead, what's going to happen is that they're going to withhold the revenue, and then the FSU is going to say, fine, we're out. And that'll be the end of it.
Interesting.
So, because we're talking about sovereign immunity now.
Yes, we are.
And, what's North Carolina going to do? Send a bunch of deputies down to the state of Florida and prevent football games from happening at Doak? I mean, how are they going to stop the Big Ten or the SEC from playing games at FSU?
Yeah. I'm going to try to get that date confirmed of when the next time Florida State should be expecting a payment from the ACC.
Yeah, I think it's right at the end of spring. And I think you might be right. It might be June 1st. That date it does stand out for some reason.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big date on the calendar to circle. Because if that payment does get withheld, then all the gloves are completely off. I mean, as if they're not off already, but it'll be off even more. And I think at any point following that, they might just say, we're out. We're done with the ACC. And you're going to see Florida State playing in a new conference in 2025.
Yeah.
I think that's where this is headed. Probably the Big Ten. So we'll have to see how it unfolds. But
yes.
There could be a settlement, Greg, but don't count on it. And I'll tell you right now, the withhold revenue is cheaper. FSU might be looking at that, just saying, "Hey, let's just play this card when they withhold our revenue, and then we get out for that amount."
Interesting, very, very interesting, Tristan. You always have incredibly interesting phone calls.
My mind's too conspiratorial, Greg.
That's okay. Great call. Scrappy
All right,
Wolf
thanks
in the
a lot.
chat room says great call. Absolutely. Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
hey, keep up the good work. I'll talk to you later.
You got it. Appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye.
I don't know about this. I don't know. I'm reading the chat room about this theory that Florida State would have to drop the Seminoles if they join the Big Ten. I don't think so. The Seminoles are fully supportive of what's going on in Tallahassee with the university. I'm not sure why the Big Ten. Not buying that theory at all. But
Call from
Richard Brookins.
Richard, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir.
Yeah, I just want to say a lot of people need to understand that, yes, the fans of FSU were mad at the ACC.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. The ACC has done more dirty stuff to FSU, including officiating over the years. That's just unconscionable.
Yeah.
But the school is looking to get out because of the money that they are not making.
Yes.
That when they signed the agreement, they were supposed to be making, because at that time the ACC was ahead of everybody else.
Yes.
Not for very long, but they were. So
Yes.
I think you're going to see some kind of settlement come very quickly because of the Florida AG's request. Once they put a court date to it, ESPN knows they're going to lose. And when they lose, it'll be in public. And I don't think ESPN is going to want that to happen. Now, I could be wrong, but the school has obviously been trying probably for years to settle this issue behind the scenes, because you don't take a court case of this magnitude with this much money on the line unless you are at your wit's end.
Yes. Yes. Yep. And I think their perception is that the ACC, there is an Achilles heel there. There is something. This isn't just about rattling the cage to try to get a settlement. This is actually, hey, there is that ACC-ESPN agreement that basically limits the scope of the grant of rights that we did sign. We're not disputing that. We signed it, although it was our president, not the board of trustees. But whatever, it's that media agreement that is what we want out there, because it limits the grant of rights. It says that our media rights are in control of the ACC as long as we're a member of the ACC. And the ACC and ESPN don't want that to be a part of the discussions. They don't want that out. And I think there's blood in the water. I think Florida State knows it. The Attorney General's hopping in. She hopped in January. She sent the letter January 4th. And they have not given her what she demanded, what she asked for. So now the state of Florida is suing the ACC. And the next part of this is I want to know the date. I want to know the date of when that hearing is, when it comes to the Florida State, the Attorney General filing a lawsuit. I want to know what the hearing of that date is. Hopefully we'll find out that schedule pretty soon.
Yes, I agree, because I definitely want to find out, because I think there will be that agreement. I just don't see ESPN letting the ACC bring them down.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
But all right, that's all I want to say. I could be wrong, but
beautiful.
I've been wrong before.
Yeah, so have
Talk to you later.
Call again, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. If you are new to the show, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Open up your notifications. We can come on live at any time. We did it again this morning. We were on last night. We can come on late again tonight. So have your notifications opened up, turned on, subscribe, and smash the like button. If you want to become a member of college football's Cloak and Dagger Early Peek, we're working on another episode. We were going to drop it this morning, but we've been working on this story and another story that we haven't got to yet. So we were not able to drop an episode. I believe we'll be able to drop one early tomorrow morning. So these are episodes for members only. We give a little bit of Cloak and Dagger information before we come on live. We have episodes for everybody, and then we have membership-only episodes. If you're interested in becoming a member of Cloak and Dagger Early Peek, go to the link provided in the description box below the video. Hit the link, then hit the join button, and become a member. Cloak and Dagger. Okay, let's open up the phone lines once again. We always have them. We always have them, but we've had incredible phone calls today. Breaking news, phone lines are back open, 763-260-1333. Breaking news, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, Mooney, files a lawsuit against the ACC demanding, saying we want a hearing. They've got to give us the ACC-ESPN media agreement. We got to see the documents and not just give it to our office, but it has to be out in public. Putting the squeeze, the leverage play. Putting the squeeze on ESPN, hoping that ESPN puts the squeeze on the ACC to reach some settlement. I'm going to show you the post of Attorney General Mooney early this morning. It basically says it all. Very simply, Attorney General Ashley Mooney says the following. The ACC is asking a state entity, Florida State University, a public university in the state of Florida, to potentially pay and lose more than $500 million, but is refusing to produce the documents related to that outrageous price tag. We are taking legal action against the ACC for wrongfully withholding these important public records. So how can we at Florida State even go to the negotiation table without being able to see the entire 168 page or whatever it is, complete document of the ACC media rights agreement that is tied in with the grant of rights? We think we know what it says. We've gone into the vault. We've written notes. And when we've written notes, you've been standing over us. It's highly restricted in the vault at Charlotte. How can we possibly pay you $500 million? How can we pay anything when we can't even grab those 168 pages, bring them home to Florida State, open records law, Florida State Public University, Florida, the state of Florida, Florida State? We can't even have those documents in-house. Now, Almighty Finn, this is a warning. This is a warning. Why are we getting so personal here in the chat room? Just state your case. State your case. You believe Florida State's going to have to change their mascot, whatever. That's fine. Just state your case. You don't have to attack anybody personally. Okay, that's a warning. It's just a warning. Okay, the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Breaking news, Reggie Bush and his legal team says his defamation suit against the NCAA remains ongoing. He's getting his Heisman Trophy back, but his defamation case against the NCAA is continuing. Phone lines open, 763-260-1333. Okay, everybody, stop with the personal attacks. Stop with the personal attacks. I appreciate it. You can throw a little bit of elbows when you're having fun with the rivalry, but personal attacks just because somebody doesn't agree with you doesn't mean they're sensitive, doesn't mean whatever. I don't believe it either. I don't know why they would. It doesn't but state your argument.
Call from
JD.
JD, the floor is yours.
I want to interject here into the dispute that's going on in the chat, apparently.
Yeah.
Let's clear the air. Not only is FSU's name the Seminoles, everything not only has the approval of the Seminole Nation. The Seminole Nation is involved in picking the horse, the garb, the wear that the rider wears. The person riding the horse, Osceola, has to be of Native American descent. All of this checks out. The relationship between FSU and the Seminole Nation is extremely strong. The whole fact of the slogan that's got a little bit of people in the national media up in arms about the ACC championship rings, okay? Mm-hmm. The slogan of unconquered, that is a Seminole, that harkens back to the Seminole Nation, that they consider themselves unconquered, okay? Mm-hmm. So the more people are going to bring this up, it's not like other mascots, and we really don't consider Osceola a mascot. It's not Chief Osceola, it's Osceola. The horse is Renegade. Mm-hmm. And so everything that's going on, before they even started the process of planting the spear, doing all this, in creating the tradition years ago, it was with not just the consultation of the Seminole Nation, they're a part of the entire process. So if FSU is going to the Big Ten like we think, they know this, okay? They like the pageantry involved with Florida State. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be a candidate. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying my word is going to squash the conversation, but anybody that believes Florida State is going to have to get rid of the Seminole, nickname. No, that's not happening. Yeah. That's not happening. Yeah, but anyway.
I don't see how that, I don't know, but I guess some people have that take. I just don't see it. I do appreciate
some people just like to argue.
I do
some
appreciate
people just like
it.
to argue.
Yeah. I do appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Very good. I do appreciate all the phone calls that have come in to our live show. We covered the breaking news. The Attorney General, state of Florida, Mooney, has filed a lawsuit against the ACC. We're going to be covering that story. We're going to continue to cover. Let me just check something real quick. We're going to continue to cover the Pickens County situation and with Clemson. I think that's going to get mighty interesting real soon here. So keep an eye on that. We're covering everything in college football. We got a couple of spring games this Saturday that we might be taking a look at here at Peek Around the Corner. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Your donations, your incredible comments in the comment section, in the chat room, and the wonderful phone calls once again from the PATC community. Still a lot of people watching our show, but we're going to have to close it down. But before you all leave, please subscribe to our channel and open up your notifications, because we possibly might have to come on live again later today, because we cover the breaking stories. We go where the story goes here at Peek Around the Corner, giving you in when we can a little bit of cloak and dagger information that we gather here at Peek Around the Corner. So I want to thank you all. A wonderful morning show here that's gone into the afternoon, late afternoon for some of you, or the middle of the afternoon for some of you. We've been on the air for almost 3 hours. Want to appreciate, we've had a lot of people in here for the whole time. Thank you so much. I'm very humbled that people would want to spend some time with me, the fat guy from Minnesota. I do appreciate it. Until next time. And next time could be just in a few hours from now. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Take great care of each other. Until next time, thank you very, very much.